McGraw-Hill Professional presents The 3 Secrets to Effective Time Investment, How to Achieve More Success with Less Stress, written by Elizabeth Grace Saunders, narrated by Kelley Hazen. Foreword. To best explain my enthusiasm for Elizabeth Grace Saunders and her provocative ideas about life management, I need to rewind the clock to the year leading up to our first meeting. At the time, I was a graduate student at MIT. I had, by that point, published a pair of advice guides for college students. My academic strategies worked well. I knew this because I had painstakingly researched them and had a growing collection of case studies to support their effectiveness. College, it turns out, is not as hard as students would like us, and, more important, their parents, to believe. Even relatively simple habits can spark big improvements. Consider, for example, the concept of a Sunday ritual. This strategy requires you to sit down with your calendar on Sunday night and plan your week ahead. Figure out what is due, what work needs to be done, and when you're going to do the work. To adult ears, this sounds absurdly straightforward, but to the typical overwhelmed student, it can be life-changing. My books teemed with stories of relaxed Rhodes Scholars and valedictorians who finished studying by dinner. The growing student stress problem, I argued, was due to lack of information. Students struggle because no one taught them how to be good students. If you gave me a few hours to explain better strategies, I believed I could transform any student into a high-scoring, low-stress star. Because I had just launched a blog, I decided to use it to publicly prove my point. I announced that I would take on a group of overwhelmed undergraduates, transform them into model students, and post about the whole process. It was this decision that led me to Lena. Lena's name was changed to preserve her anonymity, which is where my story veers off the expected path and puts me on a collision course with Elizabeth and her ideas. I began working with Lena in the fall of 2007. At the time, she was a sophomore at MIT who was overwhelmed with obligations, underwhelmed with her grades, and not getting much sleep. We met in the common area outside my office in MIT's Status Center. I had her walk me through her commitments and list her issues. After hearing her summary, I took a blank sheet of paper and drew a weekly calendar that split up each day into hours. I began by adding her classes, her labs, and optimistic estimates of the time required to tackle homework. I then started adding time for her extracurricular commitments. At some point during this process, the schedule filled from early in the morning until late at night, 7 days a week, with almost no breaks. Even if you're 100% organized and use my best, most efficient study strategies, I told her, pointing out the obvious, you literally don't have enough hours in the day for your current load. I then gave her my prescription. She needed to significantly reduce her academic and extracurricular obligations, and then tackle what remained with an upgraded set of fine-tuned habits. This would provide her with enough time to actually stand out in her courses and activities, and would eliminate her feeling of constant overwhelm. To me, the plan was a no-brainer. Lena disagreed. She politely thanked me for my advice and even came to several follow-up meetings, but she ignored my recommendations, leaving her load untouched and holding out hope that some magic productivity strategy could make it all work. After another rough semester, she ended up taking time off from MIT for medical leave. Lena's schedule had finally led to burnout, culminating with her failing to hand in a take-home final examination, even after several extensions. She returned home to the West Coast to rest and recover. It was around this time that a common friend introduced me to Elizabeth and her work. At a high level, Elizabeth's work as a time coach for professionals
Sample complete. Ready to continue?